Good morning, everyone. I don't know if you noticed, but this morning we had some really good energy coming from the Onaijin today. That is because it is my pleasure to introduce, for two guests here today. As you can see, I am joined on the Onaijin by two other ministers. The first minister is my dear friend, Reverend Landon Yamaoka from the Palo Alto Buddhist Temple. And for those of you who don't know, that is the temple that Reverend Dean Koyama, my uncle, is currently serving at. So I'm not sure if Reverend Dean sent Reverend Landon up here to kind of spy on me to make sure I'm doing a good job, but no, but in reality, Reverend Landon is a good friend of mine and a good friend of Reverend Blayne HIga. And we are all very happy that he is here today. So before I go into introducing the next guest speaker, can we all please welcome Reverend Landon Yamaoka to the Tacoma Buddhist Temple. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for this morning, my dear friend, Reverend Blayne HIga of the Kona Hongwaji Buddhist Temple. Reverend Blayne HIga is the resident minister of the Kona Hongwaji Buddhist Temple in Kealakekua on the Big Island of Hawaii, part of the Hawaii Kyodan. He holds a Master of Divinity from the Institute of Buddhist Studies in Berkeley, California, with a focus on Shin Buddhist ministry and chaplaincy. He has been a contributor to Tricycle, Lion's Roar, and Buddha Dharma. And for those of you who do not know, those issues, those journals, are very big in the Buddhist world. So it's a triumph to be published in those publications. He is a frequent speaker and seminar leader at the Buddhist communities in Hawaii and around the nation. Reverend Blayne HIga received Tokudo, or First Ordination, and Kyoshi certification from the Jodo Shinshu Hongwaji Ha in Kyoto, Japan. He is chair of the Committee on Social Concerns and Ministerial Training, and on the Ministerial Training Committee for the Honpa Hongwaji Mission of Hawaii. He was also a co-planner for the 2022 Future of American Buddhism Conference, which took place in New York. Yes, it took place in New York. Prior to entering the ministry, he had careers in state government and nonprofit sector for over 17 years. He holds a Master of Public Administration and Certificate in Urban and Regional Planning from the University of Hawaii in Manoa, and he received his Bachelor of Arts degree from Willamette University in Oregon, in Salem, Oregon. Committed to civic engagement, Reverend Blayne serves on the boards of the American Civil Liberties Union of Hawaii and Vibrant Hawaii. He is also a member of the advisory board of the Interfaith Alliance Hawaii. And if you are interested, Reverend Blayne HIga has a blog of his own that you can look up and read some of his wonderful writings. He has written many wonderful articles, one of my favorite being I'm Not Okay and That's Okay. He also, on a personal level, he and I went to the Institute of Buddhist Studies at the same time. So lucky him, he got to live with me at the Institute of Buddhist Studies dorm for 2.5 years, which means I got to knock on his door probably like at 10 o'clock at night, and we would have these long, drawn-out Buddhist discussions, debates, and examinations of the Buddhist philosophy, probably well into the wee hours of 2 a.m. in the morning when he wanted me to leave and say, "Be quiet, I want to sleep," or something, So probably it took a little while for him to agree to come be with me again in person, as he could probably only take just a bit of me on the phone every now and then. But now that he is back fully, it is a wonderful time so far. He has been here since Thursday night, and I have nothing but wonderful, heartfelt feelings to welcome my friend back and be with him in person. So without further ado, would you please join me in welcoming our very special guest speaker today, Reverend Blayne HIga.
Well, thank you very much, Reverend Tadao. It's always good to see you and to spend time with you again. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here and for the warm welcome. So let me begin with the traditional greeting from Hawaii. Aloha, everybody. So it's wonderful to join you this morning to celebrate the lives of Eshinni and Kakushinni, the wife and daughter of Shinran Shonin, our founder. Again, thank you very much to my good friend, Reverend Koyama, for inviting me to share with you today. Shakyamuni Buddha taught that the secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, not to worry about the future, and not to anticipate troubles, but to live wisely and earnestly for the present. We've certainly come to know this teaching intimately as we've journeyed through the chaos of the past several years. Living through the pandemic has forced us to slow down and to take stock of our lives. We've had to focus on truly living the present moment mindfully, with compassion and grace for ourselves and others. We've learned that we have an enormous capacity for kindness and that we are more resilient than we ever imagined. We have learned to offer praise and gratitude for the unfolding of life in all of its beautiful complexities and contradictions. Living in the spirit of Gasho by placing our hands together in reverence and gratitude for all that enables us to live and for everything that we experience. As we go through life, we discover that true growth and learning happens only when we are pushed to the edge of our comfort, that we learn the most from our struggles and our failures. The Buddha struggled for 6 years before sitting under the Bodhi tree and discovered the truth within himself. Shinran Shonin, the founder of Jodo Shinshu, studied and practiced for 20 years before realizing his own failures and how he was ultimately embraced by Amida's infinite love and compassion. When we perceive our challenges as opportunities rather than obstacles, we can discover our inner strength and our ability to persevere and to thrive. This radical shift in perspective is what the Zen master Shunryu Suzuki called the beginner's mind. He said, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. What he's asking us to do is to always keep an open mind, an open, spacious mind, not rigid or closed. This is a fundamental teaching of the Buddha. We should always approach life with a sense of joyful wonder and mystery. The Dharma teaches us how to fully experience life in the here and now, that each moment is perfect and unrepeatable, that each new day is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to share. Each of us has a light within that needs to be kindled, and when we take the time to cultivate that internal light, we are able to share who we are and our gifts with the world. Every day is an opportunity to learn and to joyfully accept that we do not know everything. How many of us think that we know everything?
Why are you looking at me?
It was just too easy, yeah? Right, so because not knowing, right, is the door to true wisdom. Accepting our not knowing leads to humility and a sense of reverence for the gift of learning about ourselves and the world around us. The Dharma teaches us how to see ourselves and life with clarity. Buddhism's emphasis on self-knowledge helps us to cultivate wisdom, which lessens our fear of the unknown. There are infinite worlds and possibilities in the gift of learning. However, we need to take the initiative to learn about ourselves and about the world around us. Learning is a lifelong process, which opens up endless avenues of discovery, adventure, and possibilities. So when we get ordained, the first ordination is Tokudo, right? And Tokudo is not the end of our journey. Tokudo is the beginning of our journey in the Dharma. Just like life itself, every day is the beginning of a new day and a new journey along this longer journey of life, this longer journey of learning and growing and sharing and becoming. That's the beauty and that's the power of the Dharma, that we are eternally becoming our true selves. There's a simple and profound and beautiful story that teaches us about the unexpected gifts we discover when life doesn't go according to plan. In Japan, 2 centuries ago, there lived a Buddhist nun by the name of Rengetsu. Her life as a nun began tragically after her husband and young children died. To support herself, she worked as a potter, a poet, and an artist. Her exquisite poetry gained her instant fame. She soon found herself moving from one home to the next, trying to avoid the constant press of customers. Although Japan named her a patron saint of the arts, she never held onto the money her art brought in. She gave it to those who needed it the most. She gave, and so more than a few times, she parted with her warm kimono to shivering street beggars. When a robber entered her home during the night, she lit a lamp for him to see him by, and then fixed the thief a cup of hot tea while inviting him to discuss his desperate situation. Rengetsu said she moved about life like a drifting cloud blowing by a fierce wind. Her poems are fresh with images from her journeys through forests and mountains. On one such pilgrimage to a remote region, she had hiked since noon without having passed through a single village. But at last, as dusk descended, she came upon a small settlement along a riverbank. She knocked upon the door of an inn, humbly asking for a night's lodging. But the inn was already full. As she rested, stars appeared out of the advancing darkness. The village grew steadily more quiet. The sounds of families enjoying their suppers faded into those of preparing for the night. Rengetsu was tired, but not discouraged. Beyond the town, she had earlier spied a forgotten orchard with lush, soft grass beneath the trees. She retraced her steps down the road and bedded down for the night under a cherry tree. In the middle of the night, she sensed a bright light upon her face. It awakened her. When her eyes opened, a hazy, snowy moon loomed in the cloudless sky. Directly above her, thousands of cherry blossoms had opened while she slept, and each flower now held bright moonlight in its petal cups. It was so lovely. Rengetsu gasped. She bowed towards the village, giving thanks for this unexpected gift, a gift of nature far more meaningful than a comfortable night in a bed. Rengetsu composed this poem. Through their kindness in refusing me lodging, I found myself beneath the beautiful blossoms on the night of the misty moon. So when we open ourselves up to what life is actually offering us, rather than what we want it to offer, a world of opportunity awaits. Every challenge and setback helps to make us better and leads us to where we are meant to be. The Dharma asks us to think critically and broadly, But it does not require us to become perfect. No one is perfect. However, what we are asked to do is to become true and real human beings, to always strive to live up to our fullest potential, and to live our lives in service to others. Like in the Golden Chain, we try to think pure and beautiful thoughts. We try to say pure and beautiful words, and we try to do pure and beautiful deeds. How many of us can say we do all of these things all the time? That's the point of being human. We are imperfect beings that are capable of such love and beauty and compassion if we only try. And we should always be mindful of our capacity for the exact opposite. Our thoughts turn to the Middle East at this time, with the escalating tensions and war in the Gaza Strip. And so we often see this type of activity in our world, right? Because of our greed, our anger, ignorance, our three poisons that make our world turn, right? We are taught that we are the sum of our choices, and that whatever we do affects not only ourselves, but those around us. That life is filled with beginnings and endings because it is constantly changing and evolving. That there are no perfect answers, but rather only better answers to the situations that we find ourselves in. We are also taught that no matter what good or bad happens in life, that there are lessons in each that allows us to grow as individuals. And ultimately, we should live without fear or hesitation, but with clear-eyed optimism and resolve. These are the values that Lady Eshinni and Kakushinni demonstrated throughout their lives, of how they faced their many challenges and obstacles with courage, with compassion, with grace, ever secure within the embrace of Amida's wisdom and compassion. This is a life of spiritual freedom and joy that we encounter along this Nembutsu path, taught by Shinran Shonin. I hope you will remember that you always have the capability and the ability to transform challenges into opportunities as you journey through life. So please join me in Gassho to recite the Nembutsu together. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Thank you. Good morning again, everybody. So, beginnings are significant because we realize the way we begin serves as a foundation for our journey ahead. And as we know, the beginnings of Jodo Shinshu and the Hongwaji was through the efforts of two remarkable women, Shinran's wife, Eshinni, and his youngest daughter, Kakushinni. This is why we take this time to remember the mothers of our tradition. Historically, very little is known about Eshinni, the woman Shinran Shonin married. However, 10 letters, as was introduced, that she wrote, dated from around 1254 to 1268, were discovered in the Hongwaji archives in 1921. Eshinni's letters describe important historical events in the life of Shinran, as well as the conditions in Japan during the Kamakura era. She also shares a very personal account of her profound appreciation for Shinran and the Nembutsu teaching. Eshinni was the daughter of Miyoshi Taminori, a samurai of high rank in HIga. She was described as refined and well-educated. Eshinni was also a landowner. This allowed her and Shinran to survive and to raise a family while Shinran pursued his vocation as a spiritual leader, spreading the Nembutsu teaching taught by Honen Shonin. Shinran and Eshinni were married around 1210 and lived in Echigo, where they had been exiled in the year 1207. They moved to the Kanto area sometime between 1212 and 1219, returning to Kyoto with some of their children around 1233. Eshinni lived in Kyoto with Shinran until about 1254, then it became necessary for her to return to Echigo to take care of her family estates. At the time, Eshinni was 73 years old. She left her 82-year-old husband in the care of her youngest daughter, Kakushinni. While Eshinni returned to Echigo, the people there were suffering extreme hardships. Famine followed poor harvests, and epidemics claimed the lives of young and old alike. Eshinni was responsible for her farmlands, her 2 orphan grandchildren, and her servants and their families. She struggled to keep herself and her dependents from starving. These circumstances prevented her from ever returning to Kyoto. However, despite the hardships, Eshinni's belief in the Nembutsu was unwavering. Late in her life, she wrote to her daughter, "I may be going to the land of bliss at any moment. In the land of bliss, we will be able to see everything clearly. So I hope that you shall live the life of the Nembutsu and come to join me there." Eshinni passed away in the year of 1268. Now, Kakushinni was born near Mito in present-day Ibaraki Prefecture. Some scholars believe that Kakushinni's birth year was when Shinran began compiling his major work, the Kyokyo Shinshu. Kakushinni was 9 or 10 years old when she moved to Kyoto with Shinran and Eshinni. At a young age, Kakushinni married Hino Hirotsuna, a relative and follower of Shinran Shonin. And in 1239, she gave birth to a son, Kakue. However, Hino Hirotsuna died when Kakue was just 7 years old. Kakushinni took Kakue and went back to live with her parents. Kakushinni took care of Shinran during his last years until he entered Nirvana on January 16, 1263, at the age of 90. 3 years after Shinran died, Kakushinni married Onomiya Zennen, who owned valuable property in Kyoto. They had at least 2 sons together, and in 1272, Shinran's ashes were removed from the original site of interment at Otani at Higashiyama to Zennen's estate. Some dedicated and influential disciples of Shinran's gave monetary donations to construct an ancestral hall. This is the beginning of today's Jodo Shinshu Hongwaji. Although the ancestral hall belonged to Shinran's disciples from Kanto, Zennen gave the property on which it stood to Kakushinni in 1274. He also stipulated that it was for her to decide whether his son or his stepson would be the heir to inherit her land. However, Kakushinni went beyond tradition and decided instead that the land would be jointly owned by the disciples of Shinran Shonin together. The Nembutsu teaching was a revolutionary doctrine at the time. The primal vow of Amida Buddha embraced all, and no one was excluded on the basis of class, of gender, education, or other biases. Kakushinni may have made her decisions based on this understanding of equality that Shinran Shonin had taught. Kakushinni also specified that the upkeep of the ancestral hall and the position and authority of the Ryusushiki would be inherited by Shinran Shonin's descendants. Kakushinni assumed the duties of the first Ryusushiki and served at the position until she passed away in 1283 at the age of 60. Her first son, Kakue, succeeded her as the second Ryusushiki. Kakue's successor was her grandson, Kakunyo. He changed the role of the Usushiki from a caretaker to an administrator known as the Monshu or the abbot, or Gomonshu. Today, Gomonshu Kojun Otani is the 25th head of the Hongwaji, directly descended from Shinran Shonin. Shinran was a revolutionary thinker who shared the radical teaching of Amida's compassionate vow, which embraces and liberates unconditionally. However, Shinran is revered not just as a great religious leader, but as a remarkable human being who lived a life of critical self-reflection and spiritual honesty, who called himself Gutoku, foolish, stubble-haired one. I have always marveled at his humility and self-awareness, and how profoundly relatable Shinran is. Shinran writes in the Gutokusho, or his notes, the Shinjin of the wise is such that they are inwardly wise and outwardly foolish. The heart of Gutoku is such that I am inwardly foolish and outwardly wise. Here we can see his spiritual maturity, which is a lesson for us to live with that same awareness of self. It was this realization of his own limitations as a human being and how he was incapable of achieving enlightenment through his own self-effort. Shinran awakened to the inconceivable working of all-inclusivism and all-embracing compassion, symbolized as Amida Buddha. That the heart of reality makes itself known to us as the name Namo Amida Butsu, which is the sound of the universe calling us home to ourselves. Back in May, I was fortunate to attend the joint celebration of the 850th anniversary of Shinran Shonin's birth and the 800th anniversary of the establishment of the Jodo Shinshu teaching, and the 17th World Buddhist Women's Association Conference in Kyoto, Japan. This was a meaningful opportunity to express our appreciation for Shinran Shonin, who founded this tradition. Thanks to this universal teaching that excludes no one, we are enabled to live with peace of mind, entrusting ourselves to Amida's compassionate working. The celebration was held at our mother temple, the Nishi Hongwaji, and the convention was held at the Kyoto International Conference Center. We had an amazing time joining with thousands of fellow Nembutsu followers from Hawaii, from Buddhist Churches of America, from Canada, South America, Japan, to celebrate these joyful events. Gomonshu Kojunotani shares an appreciation for Shinran's understanding of the Pure Land Way in the first part of his gratitude for the Jodo Shinshu teaching. He says, Namo Amida Butsu, entrust yourself to me. I will liberate you just as you are. This is the calling voice of Amida. My blind passions are embraced in the Buddha's awakening. So the Buddha calls to me, I will liberate you just as you are. Gratefully responding to the Buddha's call, I find that I am already on the path that leads to the Pure Land, and the Nembutsu flows freely from my thankful heart. Here he captures the essence of Amida's compassionate vow to awaken all beings because we are trapped by our karmic bonds. And this vow of liberation is expressed as Namo Amida Butsu, which is the calling voice of Amida, urging us to wake up from our spiritual slumber. Our natural response to this newfound awareness is of Amida's working in our lives is our heartfelt saying of the Nembutsu in gratitude. This is the life of Shinjin, the entrusting heart, which is the realization of our Buddhahood made possible through an awakening of faith. What a remarkable way of living our ordinary, everyday lives, with all of its joys and sorrows, with a sense of humility, wonder, and joy. A path of gratitude opens up a whole new world of understanding in which we realize that we do not journey alone, but we are embraced and supported and sustained by countless causes and conditions. That we are sustained by infinite light and life itself. How grateful we are. What is remarkable about the Pure Land path that Shinran shared is the practice of Nembutsu is grounded in the midst of our everyday lives. After leaving Mount Hiei, where he had trained as a monk for 20 years, Shinran married and raised a family and lived the ordinary life of a householder while continuing to say the Nembutsu as his exclusive practice. Because of this, Shinran considered himself neither monk nor lay, living in this spiritually liminal space that affirmed both the sacred and the profane within himself. Professor Tacoma Shiraki describes the spiritual journey as walking the path of the Nembutsu of everyday life, in which we think on the Buddha and say the Nembutsu in whatever condition, whether laughing or crying, angry or happy that we may find ourselves in. Through this Nembutsu practice, every day of our lives, a path opens up before us. And on that path, we are able to realize the experience of true awakening and attain Buddhahood. This is the path that Shinran experienced and revealed to us. So, what happens when we live the Nembutsu? Shinran describes a person who lives with the entrusting heart of Shinjin as a true disciple of the Buddha. Professor Shiraki shares. Shinran then explains that a true disciple of the Buddha is endowed in mind and body with two kinds of benefits. Hence, in Shin Buddhism, Shinjin means that we live with hearts and minds that are hard yet soft, gentle yet resolute. This is the fundamental image of the lives of those who live in Shinjin. Living with a soft and gentle heart and a firm and resolute mind is the ultimate benefit of the Nembutsu of everyday life. Gomonshu Kojo Otani shares an appreciation for this way of living in the second part of his gratitude for the Jodo Shinshu teaching. And he says, living with the Dharma as my guide softens my rigid heart and mind. Gratitude for the gift of life I have received frees me from becoming lost in greed and anger, and allows me to share a warm smile and gentle words. Sharing the joy and sadness of others, I shall strive to live each day to its fullest. This is the benefit of living a life of gratitude, which is made possible through the compassionate working of Amida Buddha. This transformation of our heart and mind shifts our self-centered way of viewing life, enabling us to realize our profound connection to others, living within the embrace of infinite light and life. Shinran writes in the Kyogyo Shinsho, sentient beings who encounter this light have the three defilements swept away, and they become soft and gentle in body and mind. They dance for joy, and the good mind arises within them. When those suffering the pain and travail in these three evil courses see this light, they all find respite and are freed of afflictions. Traditionally, the Pure Land path was focused solely on the afterlife. However, through Shinran's radical reinterpretation of the tradition, he refocused our attention to Amida's working in the present life, that we are actually living, affirming the importance of our ordinary, everyday lives as a place of awakening and practice. In Living Nembutsu, applying Shinran's radically engaged Buddhism in life and society, Dr. Jeff Wilson writes, Shinran stated that encountering the Pure Land path is not confined to the next life. We experience our first awakening with the arising of Shinjin, the trusting heart, during this lifetime, which is then expanded and fulfilled at the end of our present lives. This means that our current lives are affirmed as important sites of awakening. So Jodo Shinshu Buddhists aren't just morbidly sitting around waiting to die. These teachings are about truly living in this world of samsara with profound gratitude, joy, and compassion for self and others. How fortunate we were able to receive Shinran's profound wisdom 800 years since the establishment of the Jodo Shinshu teaching. How grateful we are to celebrate his 850th birthday as a worldwide community of Shinshu followers, living the Nembutsu of everyday life that he shared with us. These celebrations would not have been made possible without the contributions of both Eshinni and Kakushinni, who have had a lasting impact on Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. Eshinni gave Shinran her complete dedication and support, while Kakushinni established the foundation and the center from where we have been able to receive the Nembutsu teaching over these many generations. We have learned much from Eshinni's letters, but most significant, according to Buddhist scholar James Dobbins, their strength is that they were rooted in everyday life. She did not treat religion as an intellectual exercise, independent of ordinary events and activities. Rather, the religion of her letters is a practiced religion, inspired, albeit by Pure Land's mythic vision, but grounded clearly in the immediacy of daily affairs. Eshinni and Kakushinni represent women who were confident, self-aware, and who wholeheartedly entrusted themselves to Amida's compassionate embrace. We owe them a profound debt of gratitude for creating the conditions that have enabled us to encounter the life-giving and life-transforming Nembutsu path taught by Shinran Shonin. When you think about Eshinni and Kakushinni's life, all those centuries ago, how remarkable to think that how empowered they really were back then, right? Sometimes more empowered than women today sometimes. And so we have to really think about, right, the way they lived, right? Internalizing and embodying these teachings, right, was the source of strength and resiliency and joy and courage to be able to live life with all of its ups and downs, with a sense of clear-eyed hope and optimism, right? Ever journeying to the Pure Land. And this is why we gather each year to remember Eshinni and Kakushinni for the remarkable contributions, for the remarkable women that are the mothers of our tradition. So thank you again for this opportunity to share with you today. Thank you again to my good friend, Reverend Koyama, for having me join and visit with you this weekend. So please join me in Gosho to recite the Nembutsu together. Entrusting in the dynamic working of all-inclusive wisdom and all-embracing compassion, we call Amida's honored name in gratitude, joy, and awareness for the enlightenment and the life to come. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Thank you.